Hello everybody, and thanks for tuning into the Norries podcast again. Before we get going, don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Spotify, is that where you access us? And also subscribe to the Patreon, please. We're trying to grow it and cover costs and try to put a bit of value on the work we do. So you can donate anything from €1 or whatever you have, so it all adds up. So thanks a million and enjoy the podcast. Come back to the Norries podcast. This podcast is with traveller man Patrick McCann. Patrick was originally from Manchester, now living in Dublin. We had a little bit of a technical issue, so we missed the first couple of minutes, so we're just going to pick it up here with Patrick when he's talking about growing up in Manchester. So it's a great podcast. Enjoy.
And I liked it, It was like a proper little community. I was over there, and I got on with all the settled fellas from Manchester. Got on with them all, went to school with them. It was like we all knew each other, There was no I never got called a knacker over there or anything. I believe it or not, I never heard the word knacker until I came back to Ireland. I didn't even know what the word meant until I came back. But in England now, Manchester, all I was known as Irish,
Yeah.
Even though I used to put on the English accent when I was in England, but they still knew I was Irish, do you know what I mean? But yeah, I liked it over there. I liked going to school, and I used to go to the boxing club, and I wasn't bad at the boxing. I liked going over there. I won a few titles, won the school boys in England, and won a few things like that. And I used to had a great relationship with my trainer, fella from the club is called Levies Boxing Club. He used to like the trainer. And so everything was going well for me in Manchester. But I was like a child, I never really turned into a teenager rightly over there,
Yeah.
So everything, for that time of my life, it was good in Manchester,
How did you get on in school? Was it something that you liked?
Do you know what? I enjoyed school. Not that I enjoyed it, but I liked it, and I was actually all right in school. I was good when I got to secondary school now in Manchester. They put you in different classes. You could be in Maths A, Maths B, Maths C, And I was near enough in A's in every one of my classes. That means the higher end of it. Do you know what I mean? So I was actually good in school. But I think it was because I enjoyed it. I didn't mind going. Obviously kids don't want to go to school, but when I was there, I used to enjoy myself. So school was good for me in Manchester. That's why I always have good memories about Manchester, because because I liked to go into the school. I liked all my friends around the estate and then I liked going to the boxing club, and my family was getting on all right over there. So
I think as well, because my experience of life, I suppose, up until the ages of 12, 13 was good too, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because when you're a child, you're innocent.
Yeah.
And you're not aware of most of the shitty stuff that's in society.
Yeah.
So we tend to look back, when you're having awareness, you're innocent. You don't take on board all that negativity. But then when you come into your teenagers, you get a bit more mature, and then you start experimenting with drugs and stuff. Things can change. But you said you left school after second year.
Well, I left school. Well, I was in second year. I think it was about 13, and I was in school. But the reason why we left is because my mother and father decided to move back to Ireland, And I think my mother actually said, I remember her saying in the house that there's too much drugs in England. There's too much drugs in Manchester. Because my older brother now he was strung out on heroin. He was on the heroin and probably the crack as well over there. And my mother said she didn't want us to experience that, and she wanted to get us away from England as quick as possible. So we all came back. We came back to Ireland, moved to Dublin.
Was that was that in the early noughties,
Yeah, I said that was about 94, 95.
Was it?
95, maybe 96. 95. I said about 95, yeah, we came back. And I don't know, I always knew I was a traveller, even when we were in England, but we never lived like travellers, do you know what I mean? We lived in houses, even though we were always moving around, but I never lived in a caravan or went travelling in the caravans. And I always was curious about it. Do you know what I mean? I was always curious about what's it like and that. I knew I was a traveller. I had cousins that was travellers and used to go travelling and that, but we never did. So I was excited about the fact that we were going to come back to Ireland. I thought we were going to come back and just start travelling around Ireland in caravans, but we never did. We just came back. We came back in caravans, but we just moved into a site. Do you know? And
where'd you move to?
when we first came back, we moved to a site in Belcamp in Coolock. It was called Belcamp site, and that was all right. The site was in Belcamp was actually all right, and the people in it were all kind of half civilized, They were all right, and then we were there for about maybe 6 months or 12 months, And then I joined a boxing club over in Coolock called St. Luke's, right next to Northside Shopping Centre. And I was there. I loved the boxing, and I got down with that trainer as well. And he liked me because he knew I was a kind of half handy, like, you know. So we got on we got on well in the club. But we didn't stay in that site for long though. I think after about maybe 12 months, I wouldn't even say it was 12 months. We moved from Coolock to Blanchardstown, or no, to Finglas, into a site called Cappafield. And I didn't really like it there at all, man. It was a rough outside, you know what I mean? And the people in it weren't really that civilized at all, you know what I mean? And I didn't really know them, and I didn't know what to do, like, you know. Because the ones in the other site, I kind of half knew them. My family were kind of related to them a little bit, and we kind of got on. But then we went to this other site, man, and it was a funny environment, like, do you know what I mean? From being brought back from England to living in a house with settled kids and going to school and the boxing club and then getting brought into the site, man. I'm telling you, I
can only imagine like what it's like to, you know, move into an area where you don't know the people. You're kind of half wary of them, but you've nowhere to go. You just you're forced to kind of get on with it, you know.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was like. It was very intimidating. It was very traumatizing, actually. Do you know what I mean? Because
what was more traumatizing, going to school and like back in Ireland and being called names for being a traveller, or was it being in the site with people that
would you believe it or not? We never went to school when we came back. That was it. School over for me anyway. School was over. Like I was 13 and you know, whatever. Like that's the way travellers think. The older ones, right? That's it. Now get a job now, you know. But what I done when I came back, I went to I started going to. Believe it or not, we didn't stay in that site very long either. We just stayed there for about a year, and then we moved to Dunsink Lane. That's only about a mile or two away from that site. But believe in us, I don't think it was okay, you know. But yeah, like I said, we didn't go to school again after that. When we came back, we didn't go to school. We just went straight. I heard about these places called the Ancos. Did you ever heard the Ancos? Like FOSS courses. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Ancos are for travellers. FOSS is for travellers. But I went to an Anco in near Finglas, near Glasnevin. It was the brothers ran it, another brothers. They ran it. So I went to there. I was there for about a year, maybe 2 years. But but you wouldn't learn nothing in here, like you wouldn't learn. We only went there because you get paid. You get paid like I think it was £35 a week. You'd punt that time, you know what I mean? You get £35. That's all I was interested in, £35 a week. But you wouldn't learn anything in it. We didn't really care at the time because we were only children, like, do you know what I mean? But when thinking back now, you wouldn't learn a thing in it.
What's it like being a child and moving from haunting site, different areas? Like, would you have friends? Let's say if you were in Coolock, would you have friends and then you move to another area, so you lose them friends? And then is it like you're trying to integrate into a whole new community every time?
It's kind of like it's very that's what it's like. It's like that. You're moving from. It's like a settled person that's living in a. Just say you're living in this state now. Then you move to a state 10 mile away, and you're making all new friends, or you're meeting new people, and you're starting a new school. It's like that. But for me, it was very intimidating. You know, like you're moving from one side to another, and then you're moving into all these breeds of travellers that you don't even know, and then there's a lot of like bullying going on and fighting, and it's very intimidating, especially for a young kid, you know. Yeah. So I suppose I had to just like kind of grow up fast, you know.
A lot of pressures on young men in that environment.
Yeah, there is. And then I had a younger brother. He's about 4 years younger than me, and like I didn't want, especially when I moved into the rough sites, like they'd come around and just take your bikes like in the night time, do you know what I mean? So and they try and bully you in the sites. So I had to grow up quick, like, do you know what I mean? I didn't want me to get bullied in the site, and I didn't want my brother to get bullied either. So I was always fighting, do you know what I mean? I was fighting nearly every second day in the sites, do you know what I mean?
There's a lot of pressures on young traveller men, so like to be tough, and if it's not in your nature to be tough, you know, you might get found out, you know what I mean? Or it might affect your mental health, and, you know, because like there's a huge amount of suicides and travellers as well, you know what I mean? And maybe this would contribute to pressures of all that, having to be tough, having to be able, and maybe if it's against your nature, you know, it can be tough. Like
it would be, and it is tough because to tell you the truth, I don't think that was really my nature. I was a good boxer, Like I was good at fighting in the ring.
You were lucky you had the boxing in Manchester then.
I was thinking that it was a good job I knew how to box. I could handle myself a bit when I was fighting in the sights and that, do you know what I mean? But it really wasn't my nature to be like that. I think I just had to adapt to the environment I was in, do you know? And by doing that, I think over a course of time, I kind of changed. I changed into what I was trying to be. I was trying to put on an act of being a tough man and defend myself against bullies. But I kind of turned into a bully myself. Maybe not a bully, like I wouldn't go around bullying people.
But you had to keep that image up then to be protected from these people.
Yeah.
I can completely relate to that. You had to keep this image that you had to build to protect yourself from people that would bully you.
Yeah.
And then you nearly had to become bullied to keep the same people away.
I took on an image. I took on an image to defend myself, you know, in this environment. And the image kind of took over me. And I ended up becoming the image that I was pretending to be. I ended up becoming that image, you know.
Yeah.
I know it sounds kind of weird, like, but that's
I understand it.
Yeah,
100%.
it is. It can happen. I think anyone that came from the environment I came in and was in my situation would kind of know what I'm talking about. Do you know what I mean?
I understand, and like if for me, right, I like when we're teenagers, we're in a stage of our development, you know, where we're looking for an identity.
Yeah.
And I said about this theory before. It's Eric Erickson's. He's got 12 stages of psychosocial development, and we go through each stage. And in the stage you're talking about, we come to a crisis. It's role identity or role confusion versus identity, something like that. But you're trying to figure out who you are, and we try new trends, like we might become a goth. You know, or we get mad hairstyles, or start wearing mad clothes, listening to mad music. That's things you do in your teenage years. For me, it was taking on this identity of I'm going to be brilliant at taking drugs. I'm going to be able to take the most drugs. That was for me, I'm going to be, you know, I'll do anything, you know, for the crack. You know, I'll go over and I'll rob that, or I'll break this, or I'll do. You build that identity, but then when you get a little bit older, you have this identity, but you don't like it no more. But now it's who you are, and it's like now I'm James, and I hate the word, but these are the words: the junkie, the scumbag, the drug addict, the person that goes in and out of prison. But I don't like that. That's not the real me. That's something I took on to help me in that situation. But now I want to move away from it. And for you, was taking on that aggressive person that's going to be fighting and don't come near me.
Yeah.
But it's not the real you.
No.
But I helped you at that time.
You helped me at the time. I had to become this person. But I went too far with it. It took over me. Do you know what I mean? And I had to live in it because I was always in this environment. We grew up in Finglas, and I was always from that side I was in. Then we moved to Dunsink, and I was always around people. Don't get me wrong, I got on with a lot of people. Like we got on with most of them, but there was always someone there that always trying to test you. Do you know? They'd always try and test you. Do you know? And to see how far they could get with you, or they'd always try and be smart with you. So you always had to be on guard for them. You know what I mean? You always had to keep this image going with them.
Would it be other travellers, or would it be settled people too?
Believe it or not, it was mostly travellers, because the reason why it was mostly travellers is because I was mostly around travellers. I wasn't really around settled people that much. You know, you'd see them and you'd have a chat with them and you might have do dealings with them or whatever, but that'd be about it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It was just mostly travellers.
When did you get, I can imagine like in a situation like that where you're on edge, and if you start drinking and taking drugs, all of a sudden it makes life a little bit easier, you know?
Yeah.
Did you start drinking in the teenage years, or how did that?
Well, believe it or not, I never drank till I was about nearly 18 years of age. I was like I said, I was into the boxing and I was devoted to the boxing, and I had big dreams of the boxing. No, I was one of the best in Ireland at my weight. Do you know what I mean? And it kept me going. The boxing kept me going. That's all I used to plan to do. So I'd go to the Brothers Anko, and then I'd come home, and then I'd either go for jogging or I'd go to the gym in the club. And that was my dream, like, do you know what I mean? But I remember I got to the All Ireland finals when I was about 17. I got to the All Ireland finals, the junior All Irelands, and I boxed a fella from Belfast.
Can you remember his name?
Thomas Hamill. Yeah, Thomas Hamill, good boxer. He's from Ballymena.
Because you might watch it.
He might be watching it if you're watching it, Thomas. Yeah,
Good man.
Ballymena.
Who
he's
won?
Oh, he bet me. He bet me in the All Ireland fight. It was a close fight, but I think the last round, I was just tired, and he just kept coming forward. He was a good little fighter. He went in, he boxed in the Commonwealth Games. I think I seen him in the television boxing the Commonwealth Games a few years later. He was a good little fighter, like, to the man.
Fair player.
I think he's a traveller as well, you know.
Was he?
I think he's a traveller. I didn't know he was a traveller at the time, but I think there's a breed of a traveller. I'm sure I think they own a scrapyard in Ballymena or something like that. And someone was telling me, I think it was my trainer, another trainer was telling me that he's a traveller, or his father's a traveller, something like that.
Do you know what? Travellers become some of the best boxers in Ireland, England, wherever they are, because I think it has something to do with just growing up in a tough environment. It makes them really that extra bit tough. And I remember Mike Tyson said it there on a podcast there. His son, remember we spoke about it before, his son wanted to go on and be a boxer, Mike Tyson's son. And he turned around and he says, you will never make it in boxing, because if you ever come across a fella like me inside in a boxing ring, a fella that grew up in a rough environment, selling drugs at the age of 11, 12, robbing people and all this shit, fighting on the streets for money, he said he'll just destroy you. You know? Yeah,
you have a I think travellers, not just travellers, but like fellas from let's just say the inner cities and the rough areas, they have this natural aggression. They have this aggression in them, you know what I mean? Yeah. And if you're born like Mike Tyson's son now, he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, like he never went through any struggle in his life, do you know what I mean? So he's not gonna.
And people say that about Chris Eubank Jr. as well. Yeah. They say, like, he might be talented boxer, like, but no, when it comes down to it. Yeah. When the going gets tough, that's where the fella that's after having to fight his way into this ring. Yeah. It wasn't handed to him.
He had more heart. He's got more passion for it. Yeah. But then again, saying that, Chris Eubank Jr. He's tough. He's a tough old fella.
He is good.
He's a tough old fella, yeah.
But he got beat by Billy Joe.
Yeah. But that's
Billy Joe is elite, I suppose.
Billy Joe is good. He got bet by Canelo, but that doesn't mean he's not good.
There's nobody beating Canelo.
No, not at the moment. I can't see anyone beating him at the moment. No.
But go on, we go back to the fight with the fella from Ballymena.
What happened after that? From Ballymena, and I got bet by, he bet me anyway on points. And my trainer actually took a heart attack out of the ring as well.
No way.
It's funny. It's not funny, like, but it's kind of funny now, but because he was all right afterwards. But he took a heart attack outside the ring. He did. But I remember after the fight, I came back to the corner. I said, "Where's Sean?" He said, "The trainer said to me, he's in the dressing room. He's not feeling well." So I said, "It's all right." So then I went out to the last round and I lost. Anyway, I came back to the dressing room and Sean was on the ground. He was on the ground and they were on top of him like that, pumping the heart.
Jesus Christ!
But no, he took a massive heart attack, but he survived. He's dead now anyway. But that was that's 20 years ago. But Sean Mohan, he was a really nice trainer. He was a really nice man. He was.
What was it like losing the All Ireland final?
It was.
You put so much into it, like.
It was hard, but I was just glad I got to the final. But then I said to myself, I said, I'm gonna, because you get to juniors. The juniors are for 2 years, from 17 and 18. You know, so I said I'm gonna win them next year now. I said I'm gonna train hard this time, and I'm gonna win them next year. Next year I came and I got to the finals again. Had about 4 fights to get to the final. I won every fight to get there. 4 fights to get there, and then fought a fella again in the final, and he bet me. It wasn't Thomas Hamill. It was a different fella, but I don't know. I took it really bad at it. I got devastated, and I was just like, I remember I was crying in the dressing room, and Sean was saying to me, "Patrick, he said, back to the drawing board. Back to the drawing board, Paddy. We'll do different next time." And I don't know. I just got disgusted. I think it was that age in my life as well. You know, I just took a break. I said I'm taking a break. Took a break for about 6 months, or for a few months I thought at the time, But in that few months that I took a break, that was I just started drinking, you know, going to parties, and I wanted to do different things. I was boxing for so long, do you know what I mean? I said, I'm going to start enjoying myself now. I'm 18 now. I want to start enjoying myself and drinking and having a good time. But that's when I started drinking. And that's when I started taking drugs. At that time now, it was, there wasn't much coke around. It was all ecstasy tablets. Yeah. But I started taking ecstasy tablets, and yeah, started being up for 2 or 3 days at the weekends, drinking and coming home, dying sick, and But I got in with the wrong people as well. They were all my own people. They're all related to me, but they were the wrong people for me to be around, you know. But I started being around them, and they all used to take drugs in the site and at ease, and we used to go down to the site. That's where they'd have a good time, like, you know.
You would have great times on the ease, like, you know.
Yeah.
But you would be sick after 2 or 3 days.
You'd be dying, and I'd come down for 2 or 3 days
Even the thought of it now, like, we give empty reaches, like, wouldn't it? The thought of a tablet now,
and
like.
you know what? Back in them 90s as well, they were probably a great time to take ecstasy because they were fantastic.
Yeah.
And they were, like.
Great buzz. You'd be in a great buzz in them. You'd be on it. I love buzz, like, you know what I mean? You'd love everyone. I love you, you know.
All
You'll be
peace and
fucking
love.
threatening. You'll be threatening to kill him today.
Yeah.
That night you're hugging and you're kissing him and you're telling him how much you love him
And then before you go to bed, and when the come down's coming on you don't even look at them. You want them to get away from you, like, you know. And then you're thinking about what you said to them 1 hour before, like, how much you love them and that, you know. You know, it's a serious.
You know what? You know, you brought back memories there. You know, if you were ever going out with a woman back in the day, when you were taking ecstasy and she was ever taking ecstasy with you, lad, you wouldn't be long.
You promised
You
the
wouldn't
moon
be
in
long
the
running
stairs.
the other way after the state of the jaw, like after being out for 2 nights. And
Or if you met a man, right, and she was beautiful, and next she went back to a party, and you see her an hour later on ease, and you're like, fuck that, I'm not gonna. Because it changed your whole face, like.
Oh, your face goes.
We all become.
no,
weird,
that
you
works.
know.
Vice versa.
Of course.
It
Yeah.
works for us too, like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
You don't
It's
look
not
so
just-
good with your jaw by your fathers.
No, are trying to pick things out of thin air and they're not in there.
Stop. You would have good times, but at the same time comes with it a lot of sickness, depression, and all that.
I destroyed myself. And then I did a lot of carrying on. I was with these people, and I was doing this mess, doing a lot of carrying on and fighting, and, you know, I was kind of showing off in front of them. I wanted to belong with these people because I thought they were related to me. They are related to me, but I thought they were family, like, you know. So I was doing a lot of showing off, and I wanted to impress them all the time, and I started carrying on and fighting, and, you know. But to finish up anyway, my mother put me out of the site. She put me out of the yard, and she actually put me out to that site. And that was the worst place I ever could have went to.
To Dunsink Lane, is it?
No, I was in Dunsink Lane, and my mother put me out of it.
Okay.
She put me out to that site, because my brother lived out there. And she put me out to him, and it was just the worst thing that could have happened to me. Because I was out to that site then, and that's how we were doing out there. We was just drinking. There were some fellas out there selling drugs. They were making loads of money. But I wasn't. I was doing nothing, only taking drugs, you know what I mean, at the weekend. And then I'd be on out my dole at the end of the week. I'd all maybe £100 or maybe whatever every week out my dole for the ease that I was getting. And you have nothing, like, and you weren't doing nothing because you might be drinking for like 2 or 3 days in the site, taking drugs, and then you'd be on a come down for like 2 or 3 days after it, always in bed, and then you just start coming back to yourself, and it'd be like Friday again, and then you'd be going into the trailers again, and you'd look at them and it looked good, like, and you'd go in again, and this, I'm telling you, this went on for about 12 months solid, 12 months of this, maybe more, of just doing this, wasting completely my life, wasting maybe 18 months of my life just doing this, you know. And then I couldn't go home, so I was stuck in the site, and yeah, it was just like I don't know, it was a time in my life when I felt like there was no hope.
I was in the same situation, you know, before there was any heroin or anything in my life, you know. But the cycle of alcohol, ecstasy, and then after 2 or 3 days of ecstasy, it's like I never again doing that. Maybe Monday morning, Tuesday morning. Thursday come, then you're thinking Friday night I'm getting a load of hawks, you know.
Yeah.
And then you're doing it, and then before you know it, you're like, what the fuck? You're buzzing over you every week. And then Monday, like, never again.
Yeah.
Thursday come round, it's like the calling comes at you again.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you're doing it again, and it's very hard. Then when I was taking like that, I was skinny. I was be eating it all, just drinking alcohol.
I was the same.
Teeth rotting in the head. It's just a hard. Like, ecstasy can be fun, but most of the time you're fucking sick from it, or your head is wrecked from it, you know.
Yeah.
Mad old days too, aren't they?
Yeah.
They were. But you know, when I look back at them times when we were taking these, they were probably the best time of my life, because I was after finding something that was able to give me some form of connection and love, experience love and euphoric, all these different things. But we also didn't understand the consequences of drugs back then. We didn't understand the overdoses from ecstasy. They were a frequent thing back in the 90s and the early 90s, overdosing from people dying from heart failure. And like, these are the consequences. But when you're young and you don't have very much awareness, and something is giving you, like the ecstasy is giving you a great feeling, it's giving you self-esteem and confidence and all these different things, and love, you're not going to turn your back on it.
No.
Because I remember we'd go out after work on a Friday, we get a bag of E's, we go buzzing for the weekend, we come home Sunday night and go into work, and I could not take my mind away from the next weekend. I thought about that next weekend for the whole week.
Yeah.
And when you're young,
it's the only relief from whatever was going on for you.
But that's it. When I often mention this, when I talk about drinking drugs and how the drinking drugs saved my life in one respect, in terms of it completely overtook my thinking. Like, when I say it overtook my thinking, this is exactly what it means. Is for the whole week when I wasn't on drugs, I was thinking about drugs. I couldn't think or feel anything else. So when the Friday came, I was taking drugs and I was stoned for the weekend. But come Monday, Tuesday, whenever I stopped, I was thinking about the next session.
Yeah.
It's not till you actually stop using drugs and alcohol is that, hold up a sec, where's all this shit coming from? All the trauma and whatever else goes on in your life, and you have to deal with it, because you can't go back using drugs because they just nearly kill you. You're after being to prison. You're after being inside mental institutions for your mental health, hospitals for overdosing. And now all of a sudden you're left with dilemmas from your family. You're homeless, all these different things. And now you haven't got that crutch to help you through it all anymore, and you have to go into treatment and deal with all these issues. That's when the real hard work, and that's where we had to, and you had to start developing ourselves and start looking at all these issues to be able to grow, and become what we are today.
When we used to be taking these now like that, be gangs of people, fires, bonfires, and drinking and cans and bottles of vodka. There used to be a lot of antisocial behaviour. There used to be a lot of joyriding, a lot of criminal damage, public order. We start picking up charges and stuff like that. Was it similar for you?
Yeah. Well, there's antisocial behaviour. We were always fighting, when we'd be fighting, we'd fighting, yeah.
Were you getting in trouble with the law for it, or was it just between yourselves?
Yeah, well, that came afterwards. But I'm thinking about this time in the site. This time I was in this site. Yeah, mostly I was fighting. Like
what they would say, maybe in a kind of a feud type of an environment.
Kind of, yeah. But sometimes it wasn't even a feud. We were just blackguarding, Just we were just gone wrong. Yeah. I was just gone wrong. Do you know what I mean?
Do you know? For example, exactly what James is saying. Do you know these traveller feuds that do go on within the traveller community? They do get pretty violent.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people in the background of the violence. Say, for example, the young children, the wives, and the males. Then some of the males are dragged into shit because they're a family member of somebody that's involved in a feud.
Yeah.
And it's if you don't get involved in the feud and help the other family, you're kind of you're blacklisted, and that must be an awful lot of pressure for any traveller man. They get involved in something and he doesn't want to get involved in it, and he's pressured into it.
You can be pressured into it.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. That must be an awful feeling.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I did. I was in a few feuds myself now. I was in a couple of feuds. But that was later on. But
how did you want to finish up with the ecstasy part and that?
Yeah, just I was doing that for a couple of years, for maybe a year, 2 years out on that site, and just that 2 year, like you were saying that you were working and that while then you come back for the week. At the weekend, you'd be looking forward to the weekend. I wasn't even working. I was just I left school at 13, went to the Anco, didn't get nothing from them. got no qualifications, nothing from it. You wouldn't even learn how to write your name, only for I knew already, you know what I mean? But when the ANCO was over, there was just nothing like. So I had no qualifications. I had no leaving cert or junior cert. I had nothing like that. I didn't really know how to do anything, you know. So when I was in the site, there was nothing to do apart from crime, you know, crime. But yeah.
And when did you first start getting in trouble with the law?
I first started getting in trouble with the law when I was about 20, I'd say, maybe 21. I started robbing. My cousins used to go robbing, and they used to come back with a few pounds. You know what I mean? You see them with extra money and that, so it looked good, like, to the men, because I wasn't making money doing anything else. So so I started going off with them. I used to go off robbing shops, robbing pubs, hotels, whatever we could rob. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you get money, sometimes you wouldn't. But I think I got my first charge when I was about 20, 21 for robbing. And so I think what did I get for the first? I think I got a suspended sentence because it was my first ever conviction. But I broke that suspended sentence after about 6 months. Like, I got caught again for robbing, and I went to jail. The first time I went to jail was about 22. I got 18 months.
Mountjoy.
I was 12 months. I done 14 months in Mountjoy. I don't know. I did 12 months in Mountjoy, and then they sent me to Shanton for 2 months for finishing off a sentence.
What was it like going into Mountjoy for the first time?
It was intimidating. Like, you know, when you're young fella going into Mountjoy. No, I won't lie. I was in Cloverhill before that. I was in Roman in Cloverhill. Yeah. But when I went to Mountjoy, it was intimidating. But I knew one or two fellas in there. You know, I knew a couple of fellas in there, so it wasn't too bad. You know,
that was the same. Like when I went into Cork first, like, it's intimidating because you're going into prison for the first time. You know, but just so many people from our area inside there that it's like a home from home then as well, you know, and you just get into it very quickly. Yeah,
I think it's all the same when you go to prison. If I went to prison now, you're always going to be intimidated, especially the first couple of days, because you don't know what's going on there. You don't know if you have an enemy in the prison, or, you know what I mean. So you're a bit nervous when you first go in, but after a few days, when you get to know a few fellas on the landing, it's not too bad, you know. But so the first time I was in Mountjoy, I knew a couple of fellas in there, and I went to school. I started doing my junior cert in Mountjoy. I was doing my junior cert, and but I got moved to Shanton about a month before I got to do my test. I got moved to Shanton. They asked me, do you want to go to Shanton, and I was thinking about the junior cert, but the one time I said no, I'll go to Shanton, like, to the men, just to get out of Mountjoy, you know. But
what way did you find it? Because, you know, in Cork prison, it's like Mountjoy, right? You're out in the morning, you know, 8 to 10, go to the school or go to the gym, whatever. Then you're back in for your grub, 12 to 2, then out, you know, to the school, 2 to 4. You're back in then 4 to half 5, then you're out. Your day goes so quickly because you're taught where to go, you know where. But then when I went to Shelton Abbey, I didn't know who the officers were. The doors never closed, and I just felt the days were very long.
No, I found that as well. For the first week, it was deadly. You know what I mean? It was like a holiday camp. But then after about a week, it did get a bit boring. So it got very boring. Like, it's because in Mountjoy and the other jails, it's all routine. You know what I mean? In, out. And then the gym in the evening time, the day goes by quick enough. But I found Shanton Abbey very boring.
There was no structure to your day.
No structure, nothing. You know what I mean?
But Timmy loved it.
Yeah, I did, because I don't know, I was in a completely different place going up there in my life as well, you know.
I think if your head is right, you'd make it work.
Yeah, I was 2.5 years clean and sober by the time I went in there, and I was after doing a load of work with a psychologist in the prison and the drug counsellor and all these different things. And when I went up there, it was just like, whoa, there was no more rattling the keys at doors, you know, the officers and stuff like that. You know, I kind of went then as well from being in fight or flight consistently to really mellowing out, because you know how it is in the main prisons, you're constantly on your toes, because you don't know anything could happen anytime. It's always kind of
paranoia feeling in jail, always.
You know, it's like there's constantly adrenaline pumping through your body. When your cell is locked in at the end of the night, you can say, right, there's a steel door there, now I'm actually safe. I never felt safer in my life inside in prison.
I'm telling you, that's the truth as well. When that door's locked, and you're lying in bed, I do often thought of it, like, I'm safe.
Yeah.
You feel very safe in the cell
Wouldn't
at
you?
night time when it's locked. You think no one can get in to me now, like, do you know what I mean?
That's as true as God.
that
And there
feeling.
was times, like, when
Yeah.
I came out of prison, Pat, that I actually felt like, you know what, no, it wouldn't be a bad thing to be back in there for a few months.
Yeah, locked in that cell.
Do you know what I mean? Because there was great peace. There was no responsibilities. You had no bills to pay.
But you know what? I think
No one telling you pick your clothes up off the floor of the bathroom or anything. I'm ball happened. No, my wife would probably clap her head off me after that one. But do you know? No, listen. It been on a serious note. I really kind of balanced myself in Shelton Abbey. I a little bit of space. I was able to go for walks, and the gardens up there are absolutely beautiful. You know, it's a beautiful prison. The building is absolutely
it's a nice place. Yeah.
yeah. You know, and it was just something that I enjoyed, and but I was happy to leave that place too.
Yeah.
You know, it was an experience. You know, but like when you know, for example, when you went there then from the main prison, you couldn't continue the leaving cert, the junior cert, could you?
No, I think they were saying to me there's a place you can go to on the outside and you can finish off your. But I never did. Do you know what I mean? I just when I got out of jail, it was just back to the madness.
Yeah.
It was just back to the site, back to the madness. And I think we were involved in a feud. I was involved in the feud before I went to jail, and then when I got out of jail, so the feud was still there. So I wasn't thinking about going back to education, you know.
Do you know, being involved in a feud for a traveller and going into prison, like that must make it a lot worse. But I suppose being in prison then and knowing that you have the door to be locked, did you feel safe for being locked up instead of being inside in the site now, for example, and fucking having the fear that some cunt might come in with a fucking petrol bomb or throw a few shots at a trailer or something like that?
You do have that in your mind, like that could happen to you, like, do you know what I mean? Because a trailer is not really that like secure, do you know what I mean? A petrol bomb and a trailer goes up like that, do you know what I mean? But no, I don't know. I think over being in the cell at night time when it was locked, it was just over. I think that was over being out in the prison all day, and you're always on edge around the prison, and then when you get locked up, you feel nice and cozy, like, do you know what I mean? No one can get me now, like, they can't get
But it's
me now.
true though.
Yeah, no,
all we are at the end of the day is young men that fucking didn't really grow too much, like.
Yeah.
Like the growth is stemmed, like for me, my growth was stemmed at a really young age, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember walking around the prison, not even being able to have conversations. I've said this many times. I couldn't talk when I stopped drinking and drugging. I had no vocabulary and I had stutters, and I felt like I was a 6-year-old child in conversations with people. You know, that's how I felt. You know, and then, as I said earlier, going through all the stuff then that you have to go through.
And these identities that we formed, you know, this like the aggression, you know, when the door closes at night, you can just let it. Be yourself.
The image
you know
is
what I
gone.
mean?
You just
It
be
is.
yourself.
And what are we underneath it all? Just afraid men, afraid men that don't really know how to manage.
You know?
Do you know what we're talking about here now? Like, this will sit still with a lot of men in sitting inside in prisons that are listening to this.
Yeah.
Because, like, and any fella that it doesn't sit still with, like, probably hasn't found that spot still.
A bit of maturity to come down the line, like.
You know.
But can I ask you about the feuding? And you can be as open, as honest as you want. What's it like being involved in something like that, like where there's a threat to your life and you're always looking over your shoulder, or is it a constant feeling of not feeling safe, or feeling that you have to be attacked before you're attacked? Or
I don't know. When I was involved in the feuds, I don't think my life was ever. I never really felt like my life was like I was going to get whacked or anything. It wasn't that kind of feud, but you would get cut up, like if you were got in the right place by a few fellas. Do you know what I mean? So you had to watch where you were going, you know. And but the same way, a lot of fellas would have avoided me, you know, as well. Do you know what I mean? Because maybe I might have done the same thing back. But it was a paranoid time, because the feuding that was going on, we didn't live far from each other. We all lived in Finglas, Blanchardstown, all around there, you know. So we all kind of lived next to each other. So you could bump into each other at the shop, at the post office, in the shopping centre. You know, you wouldn't. So you always have to be on guard all the time. I always used to go around with a knife in my pocket, or maybe a machete in the boot of my car, you know, just in case. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it was a kind of paranoia time. Not that maybe you would be afraid, but not really fear. Just that you'd be kind of paranoid. You're always watching like where you're going, and you'd be thinking about maybe your family or something like that. So and it's like your mind's so always preoccupied. I'm telling you, I was full of hate. I was full of hatred for a long time. I was full of hatred. I was full of so my mind was always preoccupied with. I could never grow in life. I could never move on to the next stage because I was always involved in something. Do you know what I mean? So we had to get this sorted. We have to do this, get this sorted. Do you know what I mean? You couldn't just move on like that thing we were talking about before with the education.
Yeah.
And I could never do that, especially when I was in the middle of a feud or an argument, because you're just too preoccupied. Do you know what I mean?
And in a situation like that, then let's say if you're with your family and friends, and somebody gets involved in a fight, you're all then by default you have to get involved, or is it something that you get sucked into even if it's not your fight?
Do you know what? I never had I don't come from a real big family, like, so I never had that. I would have loved to have a big family that I could have relied on. So there wasn't that many of us, but we had. Yeah, so we always kind of did like. What's the question again?
Like to stand, like, let's say if you were hanging around with a group of boys, right? And let's say if I was hanging around with a group of boys here and one of the boys ended up fighting a fella from over here, it's not just going to be left with the two of them having a straightener. Are you dragged into a feud? Is that how it starts and then it escalates from there?
Oh, you get dragged into it. More than likely you get dragged into it, Yeah.
That's tough, especially if you don't want to be dragged into it.
Yeah.
If you're someone that really is not able for that kind of pressure and not able to carry out violent acts with knives or baseball bats or whatever, that can be really intense for any human being. It's
and when we first got into this feud, the first kind of feud we were in, we were only kids, and like the fellas that we were fighting again were all like big hairy arse men, like, do you know what I mean? Fellas in their late 20s, early 30s, we were only like 19, 20, So we're only kids, like, and we had to turn into. We had to do things that we never thought we probably wouldn't have wanted to do. Violence and feuding, bare knuckle fighting. I don't think bare knuckle fighting is too bad if it's done right. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. If that would sort out an argument, that's okay, because like the sports now, the UFC, that's like bare knuckles, and actually bare knuckles fighting, boxing is like a sport now. They're making it into a proper licensed sport. Like I don't think bare knuckle fighting. Only thing about bare knuckle fighting, it doesn't solve nothing anymore. Travellers just do it just because it's just about besting each other, and then they train for like 12 weeks for a fight to take steroids, and they're going out and so like. I
think maybe before there was social media.
Yeah,
maybe it would have been helpful to go out the lane, have a straightener. There's no boasting about it afterwards. There's there's no call out videos, nothing like that. Because I think it's important for people to understand that sometimes we see call out videos on YouTube, Facebook, and all these things, and sometimes they look funny and they're madness, but the reality of that really is you've a heart inside full of people that are fucking waiting for the next bad thing. That you've children growing up in an environment where the father is being attacked, or the attack might happen any time. Then the anxiety, then that child grows up with a sense of fear, anxiety. It's not just about the men involved in the fighting, it affects the whole family, doesn't it?
Yeah. And to tell you the truth, them videos, I don't know. I won't lie, I was in a few videos, like, but I don't agree with them now. I don't know. They just keep things going, fair enough, if two fellas are going to have a fight, and it's two good fighting men are going to fight, okay, fair enough, make a video, just arrange the fight, and but the videos that they're making where they're calling each other names, and I'm going to kill you, you're this, you're that, you know what I mean, all these bad things, I'm going to kill you when I get you, I'm going to cut you up. I don't know, I don't agree with them at all. I don't agree with them. I think they're just and you don't see no one else, you don't see any other communities making these videos. It's just a travelling community. And I think other communities are looking down at us and making these videos. I look at them, look at the rat making these videos again,
And it's important to say as well that it's a very small fraction of travellers that make these videos. But people can look at all travellers as if all traveller families are out making videos.
Yeah,
They're not.
I know. It's just that they're on the YouTube videos. There's loads of them, and certain people or whoever look at them and saying, "Oh, look at this." No man, they're all mad, the man. But I just don't agree with them. I met 2 or 3 of them, and I wish I never met any of them. Do you know what I mean? I really regret making them. But
how did you get out of that lifestyle? The drugs, the violence, the crime. What happened? Did something happen that you said, "Fuck this, I've enough," or did it come by accident? Or
well, I'll tell you what. My big turning point was about 5 years ago. My sister died. She took an overdose, and around about the same time, my ex she left and she took my children to England. And it really affected me. The 2 of them things happened at the one time. It was like a loss. I lost my children and then I lost my sister. And it really affected me. And I don't know, I think I went a bit crazy, like, do you know what I mean? I went a bit bonkers. I was definitely suffering with mental health, do you know what I mean? And then on top of that, I was completely strung out on tablets. I used to take tablets every day.
like Valium D10s and stuff.
Valium D10s, and then when I couldn't get Valium or D10, I'd go into Sheriff Street and I'd get the fake ones.
Yeah.
The Tranex and the Zimovane.
Yeah.
I'd get them, and then they wouldn't even be real Tranex or Zimovane, they'd be fake, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you get the same kind of effect from them.
Yeah.
But I used to go into town, I'd probably go in and get 3 or 4 packets, and I'd say, right, these are going to last me the week now. I'll take 6 today. You get 12 in a packet. I said 6 today, 6 tomorrow. But then by the time I get home on the bus, I'd have nearly them all gone.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Like a fella that's after eating about 100 bombs.
Yeah.
The whole face would be blue from eating tablets.
Yeah, and then you'd be going around saying, "Oh, these are fake. These aren't even working." But you'd be going around, you know what I mean? You'd be, But that's what happened to me, and I was definitely suffering with mental health and the tablets, and I strung out on tablets.
Self-medicating, like.
Yeah, because I know what it was. I didn't like my reality. I didn't like the way my life was. And I didn't like being in reality, so I wanted to be out of reality all the time, do you know what I mean? But but I was still committing crimes and that. I was still going off robbing, and I was robbing. But I went up to Drogheda, and I was robbing apartments, and I got caught coming out of the apartments with 2 big suitcases full of, I don't know what was in them, but but I got caught anyway by these guards. Someone rang the guards, and when I was coming out, 2 guards were waiting for me outside and arrested me. And I got charged with handling stolen goods. They couldn't prove that I was in the apartments, like, do you know what I mean? But they took me for handling stolen goods, and it got sent forward to the High Courts. So I knew I was going to go to jail because I had a bad previous, do you know what I mean? So I was staying with my mother at the time, and then I said to myself, you know what, I may go into treatment or something, just to get letters for the courts. Yeah. So it took me about 3 months to get into them, because you had to give all the tablets had to be out of your system before you could go in. Do you know what I mean? So, but instead of taking tablets, I was drinking every day. I was like an alcoholic. I was drinking every day. But eventually I got in anyway. I got into Peter McFerry's, and I was there for about 3 months. And
what is Peter McFerry's?
Peter McFerry's is it's a treatment centre. Yeah. But it's a therapeutical treatment centre. It's a trauma-based therapeutic treatment centre. Now, I didn't really know I needed it, but I definitely needed this treatment. You go in there and you just go over your past, and you got to write it down, and she asks you, the teacher, like the counsellor asks you questions, you write down questions for you, and then you have to write an answer in your own time, like write an answer to it, and then you go into for a session with her, and then you talk about it. You talk about these experiences that happened to you, you know what I mean? And so it was 3 months of that. And I felt better living it, you know what I mean? I knew before I left Peter McFerry's, or the Lantern, I knew I wanted to change my life.
What age are you at this stage?
This is only about 3 years ago. So about 36.
30.
So but I knew when I left Peter McFerry's, I wanted to change my life. But then they asked me before I left, he said, do you want to go back to your own place, or do you want to stay in a recovery house? So I said, you know what, I'll go to a recovery house. But I was even going to the recovery house. I just wanted to go. I said, if I go to a recovery house now, it was all deceptive. Like, I said, if I go to a recovery house now, I said, no judge is going to take me out of a recovery house and send me to jail. I said, it wouldn't make sense. So it was all deceptive. Like, I'm just doing it for the course. But they sent me to the recovery house anyway. I was there for about 12 months in the recovery house in Baldoyle, Peter McFerry House. I was there for about 12 months. And do you know what? It done me the world of good, because I was out of the environment. I was out of my environment, do you know what I mean? Where I used to be, at home, like in the site. So I got out of there and I moved to the recovery house. So I was there for 12 months. And while I was there as well, you've got to do a treatment centre. You've got to go to a day programme. That's the deal. If you're staying in the recovery house, you've got to do a day programme. Yeah. So I went to, started Coomine day programme. And yeah, that was great. I was there for 12 months as well in the day programme. And it was brilliant.
What was that like?
It was brilliant. It was just like, it was just groups, group every day, 3 groups a day, and you just talk about stuff that's gone in your life, talk about stuff that's that happened to you in your past, and just try and work on it, just talking about stuff. And for the first couple of months I was in the treatment, in the day program, I didn't really talk. Like, I didn't really want to talk about my life or talk about anything personal. I'd say things, but they weren't really that serious of things. Like, But I seen people in the group talking about stuff, and I seen them having breakthroughs in the group So then I said, you know what, I'm gonna just take a chance. I'm gonna talk about something. So I talked. So one day, your man asked me, do you want anything you want to say today? So I said, yeah. I said, I want to say something. So I talked about something to this group that I never talked about to anyone in my life. I never talked about it I never even talked to any travellers about it. I never talked to anyone about it. So I talked about it anyway. And I was kind of looking around at the group as I was talking, paranoid, and I was just waiting for someone to give a little smirk or roll their eyes or something, do you know what I mean? Just then I would probably have left. But to my surprise, when I did tell them this story or whatever it was, I got some great feedback off them. They really were listening to me, like, do you know what I mean? And I got some great feedback. So feedback that I was shocked that these settled people, these Dublin fellas, and there's young fellas there, there's old people there, people that I would never usually associate myself with, but I was telling them my deepest, darkest secrets, like, and they just gave me great feedback. They gave me some great advice, and they were just really, I could tell by them they were really interested when I was talking,
You know what you did there? And I did the exact same situation. I was in St. Francis Farm, residential up in Carlow. For about 2 months I was in groups, I didn't open my mouth. Like what you were saying now, I'm grand, just kind of superficial stuff, not really deep or meaningful. Yeah. And they used to say to me, like, you don't need to be here, James. There's nothing wrong with you, no issues really. But do you know why we end up? Do you know why we're like that? Because in the environments where we grew up and the environments we come from, you don't leave yourself vulnerable like that, because you'll be torn apart.
Found out.
It'll be seen as a weakness. Yeah. But in a situation like that, where you're doing in a therapeutic environment, where you're leaving yourself vulnerable like that, and then you're looking around for the negative feedback, didn't come, and what you got was a lot of positive feedback. And then you begin to realise, you know what, that mad life I was living, that's only there. But in the real world, some people are sound and some people are nice, and I can trust people, and not everybody is out to get me, and I don't have to be violent, or I don't have to have that facade or image here. I can actually be myself, and people will accept me for who I am, even if I have gone through all this stuff. They can relate with me, So it's about finding a place where it's safe to be vulnerable, and we can get great growth through that, So I could identify so much with that. Just kind of saying fuck all, and then actually opening them out and looking around for the negativity, and it's not there, and then just feeling like, you know what, I'm accepted, it's actually okay, and then kind of taking it from there, Well,
that was definitely a breakthrough for me, because I didn't trust the group, but when I done that, I just realised these people, like, I can't trust them. These people, like, they were giving me this advice, and they didn't look down at me, or cause I was thinking, because what I was talking about would be unusual for these people, because I'm a traveller. That's why I didn't really open up to them, because I'm a traveller, and the things that I be talking about that give me traumatise me, they probably wouldn't understand. That's what I thought. Do you know what I mean? But then it was explained to me afterwards, listen, trauma is trauma. And we all have our own feelings. Just because you're a traveller from a travelling community and we're from a settled community, or if you're black or if you're white, trauma is trauma. We're human beings, like, do you know what I mean? So, yeah, so they could relate. They couldn't relate to some things I was talking about, but they could relate to my pain and they could relate to my trauma, because they all went through it themselves in different ways, you know.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter if you're black or white or settled or travel. We're all human.
We're human,
and you might have went through different events, different circumstances, but we all feel the same. We all feel the same fear, feel the same pain, feel the same anxiety, hurt, and all these things, you know. So, no, it's great for you to say that. Like,
yeah, it was good, man. It was a changing point in my life now, because when I left the group, I'm telling you, I floated home. It was like a ton of weight was took off my shoulders, like, do you know what I mean? It was like a ton of weight, and I just floated home. And then the next morning I came in and I was into the group thing, do you know what I mean? I said, listen, whatever's going on for me, I'm talking about, because if it can do that for me again, good, I'm going to keep doing it. So that was because then I started taking this treatment seriously. Then, you know, it wasn't just about my course anymore. But still, I still had course. The courses were still going ahead, but it was kind of getting real now. But then after about maybe 6 months later, I got my court day came up, my final court day, and I went to court and I had a ton of letters. I had letters from Coolmine, Peter McFerry's. I had letters from I was living with the Simon community at the time. I got letters from them, loads of letters. I was working with the frontline security in Crow Park, so this is another letter, you know. It was all for courts. But even though it was starting to work on me now as well, though.
Yeah.
But then I went to court, and I remember there was a barrister there, and I didn't think he was really taking heed of the court case. I thought he was just there, just going through it, you know. Yeah. But he was talking for me up in the box, and they were reading out my previous convictions, and the woman judge, and she looked I didn't know what she was going to do. And then they were saying, well, Your Honour, he got 12 months in Tipperary, he got 12 months in Newbridge, he got in Galway, and they saw loads of different counties. She said, oh, he gets around, isn't he? He gets around. I said, oh, I'm going to jail. But
the wrong type of travelling.
Do you know what I mean? She said, he gets around. And she looking out at me like that. I said, oh, I'm going to jail. But then my barrister started reading out all what I done in Coolmine and this and that. And then this other barrister gets up, an old fella, no wonder fella with the wig yokes, and he starts talking. And he said, Your Honour, he said, there comes a time in a man's life. She started saying how old I was. Your Honour, my client is 37 years of age, and talking. He said, there comes a time in a man's life, he said, when you can go down one road and you can go down to the next road. And he's talking. He said, Your Honour, I think myself it's make or break for this man now. He's doing all this for the treatment. He seems to be going in the right direction. He said, he was trying to say it by sending me to jail, it might not do me any good. So, but he said it's make or break. But when he said that, I just started thinking to myself, do you know what? It is make or break. It's time for me to do something with my life now. It's time to cop on, like, do you know what I mean? But anyway, the judge, after all that, she said, right, Mr. McCann, I was going to give you 3.5 years today. She said, you got a terrible record, which I do. I have about 70 or 80 previous convictions. She said, you got a terrible record. She said, I was going to give you 3.5 years today. She said, but then she started talking good, what I'm doing and this and that. And she said, I'm going to give you a 3.5 year suspended sentence. She said, for 2 years. She said, but you've got to keep doing what you're doing. You've got to keep going to Coolmine and this and that. So that was that. So then courts were over. That was it.
It's brilliant. You know, me and Timmy were at a conference there for the Cork Alliance who support people in prison from Cork. And there was a couple of judges at the conference, and we went for dinner after the conference, and we got chatting to one of the judges after it, you know. And he was talking to us, and something he said to us, you might remember, Timmy, but he said sometimes he gives people chances, you know, adjourns the case so they can go to Coolmine or Brody or Tabor Lodge to go to residential. He says, but he knows that they're only doing it to get off the court. And you know what I said to him? I said, you know what? You're probably right. Like I said, but sometimes they can get it while they're in there.
Yeah.
And people do go into residential treatment or any sort of treatment with the wrong motivation and actually get recovery while they're in there.
Yeah,
You know, and that happened for you.
Yeah, that's what gets your foot in the door.
Yeah.
I was talking to my counsellor, my key worker in Coolmine the other day. I told him about it. He said, Patrick, he said 90% of fellas who come to Coolmine is for that. He said, but we try and do something for them while they're in here.
Yeah.
So we try and have a breakthrough with them while they're in here. Do you know? And that's what happened with me. I done it without me even knowing. It just happened. You know, I started seeing good things happen for me. You know what I mean? I forgot to say when I left Coolmine. When I left Coolmine, I went to a place called the INOU, the Irish National Organisation for the Unemployed. Well, they actually came into Coolmine. They come in every year to a group, like, and just start telling them what we do, what they can do for us and that. And it seemed interesting, do you know what I mean? And then, I needed to do something when I left Coolmine, a bit of structure, like, you know. And another thing as well, I was thinking, another thing for the judges as well, to find out I'm in college now, do you know?
It all helps, yeah.
It all helps. It was all in the brain. I'll get as much as I can. But like Coolmine and like treatment, I done it for the courts, and I went to the INOU for the courts. But while I was in there, and I started learning and reading and doing stuff with the college and that, and I just started saying, it started bringing back memories when I was in school in Manchester, you know, doing little assignments and...
Yeah.
And then the teacher was telling me, Patrick, why don't you... Because I was doing well, like, I was keeping up with everyone. And she said, Patrick, would you not be interested in going to university after this? Because my plan was to go there, get a level 5. Because you need a level 5 now for any job, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For any job. So my plan was to get level 5 and then get a job. But then she was saying to me, would you not be interested in going to university and getting a degree? She said... So then I was thinking, yeah, do you know, that sounds good. But, so...
What university did you end up going to?
I went to Maynooth. I signed up for... I was going to do a social care one because there's a few people in my class that was going for there as well. But then I heard about the Maynooth Youth and Community one in Maynooth. And so I signed up for there. And I went for the interview. You done everything for me. Did all the Susie, did all the applications and that. So I went up, signed up for it, and they accepted me. About 2 weeks later, I got a phone call off one of the professors that you've been accepted. So
it's a great feeling,
it's a great
isn't it?
feeling, man. It was
like there's people like us, you know, to go through what we went through and then end up in university. It's like, how the fuck did this happen? You know, but you're just so happy to be there, so grateful, and you know. But it can be hard as well. There could be imposter syndrome. I don't belong in a university.
Yeah.
You know, I did want to find out what I used to do in the past. Am I going to be exposed?
Yeah.
Did you go through that as well?
Oh, definitely. Not just that, like, and then being a traveller as well, you just think, you know, you just have this feeling when you're a traveller that you don't belong anywhere. Like
1% of travellers have third level education.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's 0.5%.
Less than a percent.
I say it's even less than that, but maybe it's maybe it's 0.6%. But I say it's even less than that. But like I just like you were saying about the criminal record. Yeah, I have a terrible record, but then I'm a traveller as well. So I was thinking they're not going to accept me, like, do you know what I mean? But I don't know. Maybe it's because this course is youth and community, and they're all into all different cultures and different inclusion and that. You know, so maybe being a traveller kind of helped me to get into this course. You know.
And I always say, like, I did youth and community in UCC and criminology as well, and there were courses where my past experiences actually made me more eligible for the course. Yeah. And I was more accepted. Yeah. You know, I'd say it would be like Timmy went into a construction management course where they wouldn't have any understanding of what Timmy went through, so it would have been a bit harder for you, I'd say, Timmy.
Yeah, it was more difficult, alright. And I felt completely out in the cold, if I'm gonna be very honest. You know, it's not a degree that people that come from backgrounds like me and you and James go into straight away. We usually lean towards somewhere that we can help people like ourselves, like the youth and community, criminology, like James. But I never felt comfortable inside in the class, and every time they'd start talking about interviews, you know, in terms of when we leaving in the fourth year, interviews from the big companies, you know, around Cork and Dublin, I used to feel like shit. I used to get that feeling of just pure anxiety, you know, because the thoughts of my criminal record being read out in front of me, in front of a panel of 3 or 4 people. It just, it really, it didn't resonate, it sit with me too well, and I couldn't go through it, you know, and I had to protect myself in the end, and I decided not to go down that route, and that's when I decided to start my own business and start employing people that were just like me, that would have had the same feelings, you know, in the work environment, that they couldn't get into jobs because of their criminal records or and shit like that, you know, and I definitely made the right decision, and I feel like I did, because I'm working with people that have came from similar backgrounds now to me, and there's no awkwardness.
Yeah.
The energy is the same. There's no judgment, none whatsoever, because I've done shit as well that I'm ashamed of. You know, we all do. You know, but I've done it all in addiction, and now I don't do any of those things, and I live an honest life. The behaviours that I had in my old life, you know, all the mad stuff, you know, they're not there today. You know, I live a really, really stable life where I try to do the next best thing every time, and I don't always do the next best thing. You know, but when I am wrong, and I believe I'm wrong, and I've hurt somebody verbally, or by a decision I make, I try my best to apologise, you know, but I am a working process, you know. I'm like a never-ending conveyor belt.
Yeah.
That's just consistently just getting there and getting in there, you know, and I believe I have a certain strength where built throughout my life, you know, starting at a really, really young age. I've this strength within me just to overcome everything, no matter what it is. Same as you, because of you, and I believe it's our life. I believe it's every single experience and every single person's influence on us gets us ready for the next step. It's like a stairway. Everything that's gone on before that gets you ready for the next one, and we keep growing.
Yeah. None of the bad experiences are wasted, because they make us who we are today.
Yeah.
They give us character, and to come through all that and to end up in university, that's not an easy way to do it. You know what I mean?
No.
But you work so hard. And what year are you in your course?
I'm just finishing the first year now. I'm doing my placement now in the first
Tough year to start as well with COVID.
Yeah, I was actually talking to. I tell you, it was a very tough year with the COVID. It had to be the hardest year for anyone in university.
You don't get the sample, the experience of being on campus and meeting the classmates and the libraries. No, that's all part and parcel of it. You know? Getting involved into the societies and all these other things.
It actually, there was a statistic came out there last week. It actually is very, very tough for people like Pat and his classmates, because a lot of them they're doing the course because of the social aspect to it.
Yeah.
But you know, in terms of, there's a lot of courses as well in the college that a lot of the students are quite comfortable not going into class, because a lot of them would struggle with social anxieties and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm on about degrees now where it's a lot of people are using their minds and stuff like that in say, let's say, science, and no, I'm saying nothing about anyone.
I know what you mean.
Science, but where people are really, really, really smart, they can sit at home and just get on with it at home.
They're comfortable doing that.
Yeah. But a lot of the learning for me, and when I was doing young community, was before the class and after the class, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, how are you getting on with this? And you know, you get pointers from your classmates, you know.
But you know, I was lucky. I'm lucky. Well, my class is great. The class that we went into is great. Like the new people that I've met, they're all very helpful and nice and that. But about 4 of us came from the INOU together, and we have our own little WhatsApp page. You know, so we can text each other, we can ring each other, we can talk about assignments that we get and that. You know, so I'm lucky to have this group of people like that came into Maynooth with me from the INOU. You know,
that's great.
And tell you, all of them, we're all in recovery. Like, the 4 of us were in recovery. You know,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us? Sorry, go on, Tim.
No, I was just going to say, like, that's what or we have groups like that as well. We're all in recovery, and and it means so a lot, like, just to have people like that around. And I think that's recovery.
Because people in recovery want to help people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we've all got that thing in common, you know?
Yeah, and if you can get paid, if you can do it as part of your job,
Bonus.
that's the bonus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your placement?
I'm doing placement in college. It's a traveller prison initiative. The traveller prison initiative works towards the particular needs of and circumstances of travellers within the prison system in the Republic of Ireland. They also make changes in the prison system that have a positive influence on travellers in prison and their families and the community.
Yeah.
So
because like for fellas like me and Timmy and you going to prison, it's all prison. But when you're a traveller, you have different needs to somebody that's settled.
Yeah, you kind of do, you know, and like there's only 0.6% of the Irish population are travellers. There's only a very small amount of travellers in Ireland. You think there's more? In fact, if you put all the travellers into Croke Park, there's only half fill it.
That's madness.
But at the same time, don't know, you'd think there was more, wouldn't you? It's only a small amount of travellers in Ireland. But at the same time, there's such a high percentage of the prison system. The men are 10% of the prison system, traveller men, and the women are 15% of the prison system. And I think traveller children are 18% of the juvenile system. So like we're a high percentage. So what the Traveller Prison Initiative does, do you want to know if there's such a high percentage of travellers in the prison? Do you want to find out, is renting getting done for them? Are they going to the services? Are they going to addiction services? Are they going to education? Are they going to counselling services? You know.
So they try to help the prison so that the prison can respond to the traveller to kind of drop down those numbers, you know. Because if you make up 0.5% of the population, but you make up 10% of the prison, there's something seriously wrong there.
There's something really.
And maybe the prison can't focus on any of the stuff that's happening on the outside, but when they come in your doors and into this. Then the prison can do stuff, you know, and that's where the Traveller in Prison Initiative kind of comes into play then.
Well, they've looked at other countries from around the world as well, like Australia, New Zealand. Australia, the Aborigines, the indigenous people in Australia. Yeah. In New Zealand, there's the Maori. In Canada, there's the Native Americans, you know, and then in Ireland, there's the travellers, and we've all got high percent. Like the Aborigines are a very low percent. I think Aborigines are like 2.5% of the population, and the same with New Zealand, the same with Native Americans. But they're a real high percentage of the prison system. So there's something going wrong in these countries, you know what I mean? There's something going wrong, and there's something going wrong in Ireland with the travellers, you know.
Yeah. And high percent in the prison, also high percent in the overall suicides, mental health, addiction,
suicide, addiction,
you know, low, the average age of death for a traveller man is far younger than a settled man.
For a man, it's
10 years,
11 years for a man, and it's 15 years for a man and 11 years for a woman. They live less than a non-traveller. Do you know what I mean? So there's something going on, and this is what we're finding out in the Travellers Prison Initiative. You know, things like this, you know, and I find that very interesting, you know.
I have a question for you. How is it for a man that thinks he's gay in the traveller community? How difficult is it for him to come out and say that he's actually gay?
I say it would be very difficult.
Do you know any gay travellers?
I don't really know any personally, but
the fact that we have to think about it tells its own stories. You know what I mean?
What's coming into my head is like, for a traveller man to say that he's gay would be an awful. He would get an awful lot of stick over it. But to be a traveller, you know, like would that have a lot of effect on the suicides within the traveller community?
I'd say it would. Yeah. I'd say they'd be under an awful lot of pressure. Like, do you know what I mean? They'd be like, I don't know, they'd be kind of cast out a bit, you know. Nobody would have anything to do with it. I don't think so anyway. Most of the people wouldn't hang about with them, wouldn't talk to them.
And I think that's very sad.
It is sad.
Because there's absolutely, like, if so, there's nothing wrong with.
I think there's another podcast, and that maybe we might get Martin Bean's word on. Do you know, the comedian guy, he's a gay traveller, he's a comedian, he's a gas man.
Yeah, I do see him on Facebook.
He's a gent as well.
Yeah.
But I'd say he come on and talk about that. But I'm keen to get you back on the last train. So we'll wrap it up if you don't mind.
No problem.
Do you want to just maybe very briefly just tell us about what's your plans for the future? Maybe like would you like to go back helping travellers, helping people in addiction, homelessness, or are you just going to take what comes?
Well, to tell you the truth, since I've been doing this course, I'm very interested in this course now. And maybe somewhere down the line, and maybe the next couple of years when I get my degree in that, maybe I could go, maybe not Travellers Prison Initiative, but in that area, you know?
Yeah.
Because I did say to myself when I first started college, if I get a degree, I'm not just going to go into work with travellers just because I'm a traveller.
Yeah.
But I think I could do something good in this area, you know? I'd have a lot of experience. Like I've been in prison, I'm a traveller, I've been in addiction. So I have a lot to offer, you know? Yeah. So maybe in this area, maybe with people in addiction, not just travellers, with people in addiction, maybe with people in prisons.
Yeah, you can work. Do you know what? There's so much potential there. You could do what you wanted, and you could go. The best thing about having a degree is you can go into a role, and if you don't really like it, you'll just go into another job because you have your qualification. You've all this lived experience, but now you've an academic degree as well. Yeah, and you know you've a lot of flexibility like that. You go to different jobs, try new things until. But I wish you not, but the best of luck with it.
Thanks very much.
We'll definitely keep in touch.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll touch base again when you finish up and see how you get on. And I hope, you know, there's fellas in the prisons and treatment centres now that watch this and identify with you and think, you know what, I can relate with Patrick, I can relate with Tim, I can relate with James. What courses can I do? Maybe I can have a better
100%,
life.
because I'm telling you, 3 years ago, I was completely lost. And I just didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And it was a lot of luck, but I got a lot of support as well, and a lot of hard work from me. But if I can do this in my life, anyone can, you know, because a few years ago I really did hit rock bottom, and I just didn't know what I was going to do. I was lost. Yeah. But just the way I turned my life around, and I hope travellers that's watching this or listening to this can relate to what I'm saying, and I hope you can take something from it.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I've took an awful lot from it, and I know James's as well. But I guarantee you this. If there's a traveller sitting inside in a cell now watching this and he feels like there's no hope and he listens to you talk, you know, I guarantee you this, you will change their lives, and I just want to thank you as well. I hope so.
Thanks no problem. Thanks very much for listening to me.
Not a bother. And thanks Patrick, thanks Rowan, thanks Timmy.
Thanks lads.
And thanks everybody that watches. We'll see everybody again next week. See you later.